Abdi Sahel Dawali is a young man who grew up surrounded by violence, conflict, and hunger. He could imagine no end to the cycle of poverty and frustration he had experienced his entire life in his homeland of Somalia. He dreamed of escaping to Europe for the chance of a better future. Unlike so many other young people with no hope, he fled his country and undertook a long and dangerous journey. Abdi traveled for days by car and on foot from his home through Ethiopia and Sudan in his attempt to reach Libya, where he hoped to find passage to Europe. And after walking for almost 2 weeks in harsh desert conditions, he finally crossed the Libyan border. There he found even more hardship, conflict, and violence. He struggled to raise enough money to pay the traffickers for a place on a boat to Europe. And just to make his predicament worse, he was imprisoned for more than a year for overstaying in the country. On his release, he was finally able to raise the money for his trip with the help of his friends and got on a boat bound for Europe, a boat that would take him to freedom, only to suffer another catastrophe when the boat's engines failed and they began to sink. He floated for 12 hours in the sea and could only watch helplessly as many of his friends, all who had been filled with similar dreams and desperation, died in the cold water before he was thankfully rescued. Abdi spent 3 years in Libya, stuck in a cycle of failed attempts. And when the tragedy of losing his friends became too much for him, with his heart broken and dreams of his future in Europe crashed, he eventually returned home to Somalia, resigned to a life void of hope. This is where Abdi's story changes from those of so many young people in our region. Living in Somalia once again, Abdi faced a life of despair, till one day his friends told him of an organization called Silatech, which might help him get a job or start a business. And with nothing left to lose, he decided to take this one last chance. He applied for and secured a loan that he used to open a brand new business, a cafe in his hometown, a business that has given him a future, a business that has given his family a new quality of life, and a business that has allowed Abdi to hire 3 other young Somali employees, and in turn help them support their families and contribute to his entire community. And he told us, now I have a successful enterprise that changed my life. I'm an active member in my community. I have hope. Thalathik in Arabic means your connection. But to millions of young people in the Arab world, Thalathik means something more. It means hope. Hope for a decent work, a steady income, and a better future. In 2005, with the horror of 9/11 still a recent memory, I was invited to join a high-level group by the late Honorable Kofi Annan to explore the roots of extremism. Back then, unemployment in the MENA region was already very high and continuing to rise. Many young people had no prospect for a better future, and I was deeply concerned that unemployment was contributing to the radicalization of Arab youth. And we soon came to realize that the scope of the problem in the Arab world was even bigger than we had thought. The population of young men and women was growing much faster than the number of jobs that were available for them in the marketplace. Statistics from the International Labour Organization told us that about 13% of the world's young people were unemployed. But in the Arab world, the number was 30%, which meant that tens of millions of young Arab people were without jobs. Well, without meaningful work, our young men and women had no hope for the future, leaving them more vulnerable to radicalizations, violence, and political extremism. And as recent history has shown us, hopelessness has consequences. In 2011, frustrated Arab youth, many with no jobs, no prospect, and no hope, took the streets in the Arab Spring protest, overthrowing and destabilizing governments. And just a few years later, tens of thousands of young men and women from the Middle East and MENA area, unemployed, hungry, and desperate, waded ashore in Europe, setting off the greatest global migration crisis in the modern times. So if hopelessness has consequences, so does hope. In 2008, I created Silatech as a global initiative with a primary focus on the MENA region to empower our youth. We quickly gained the support of UN agencies, NGOs, companies, banks, and individuals, including some of you here today. Silatech approaches the problems faced in these communities in a creative and innovative way. We aim to create programs that are sustainable and that have transformative impact on the root cause of the problems and not just address the symptoms. First, we study the local economy and community to determine what kind of employment or training is appropriate. And once we understand this, we connect with banks and other global partners to provide microfinance opportunities for young people who need small loans to start businesses. But some young people aren't looking to open a cafeteria like Abdi. They don't want to start their own businesses. They just need training to compete for existing jobs in their communities. So during the past 10 years, Silatech alone, with over 300 partners, connect more than 1 million young people in 17 countries with new jobs, careers, and businesses. But my friends, Silatech's work has always gone beyond just finding jobs or creating businesses. Many of our efforts have a more wide-ranging impact on the countries in which we operate. We strongly believe in the importance of youth civic participation and social empowerment as a driving force for community and national development. In Tunisia, for example, we partnered with the UN Democracy Fund, Tamkeen for Development, and Zaytouna Tamkeen to empower youth to build confidence and commitments to participate in the democratic process. And of course, on a different front, our Al-Amal program in Sudan aims to rehabilitate and reintegrate previously radicalized youth, training them in entrepreneurship and helping them start their own businesses. So instead of giving up on them, we give them a second chance to transform their lives and help rebuild their communities. Young men and women need jobs or business opportunities to better themselves and their communities. They need a chance to earn a living that will allow them to support their families, contribute to society, and build better futures. This is the hope that Silatech offers. So I am here to announce today that in addition to the 1 million young people we have already connected with jobs, We now have commitment in place to connect another 2 million young men and women by 2022. That's 3 million meaningful jobs and businesses, thanks to Silatech and its partners. But we must do more. I therefore propose that we set a new target and raise the bar to 5 million by 2022. It's more than just 5 million individuals. It is their families, their new employees, and their families whose lives will be changed. So today, I call on leaders who seek stability in their communities. I call on financial institutions who have the funding to invest in our youth. I call on human rights activists who desire equality for all. And I call on governments who understand the dire consequences of the migration crisis. Together, we can shift the paradigm from negative to positive, from loss to gain, from marginalized to empowered, from disillusioned to valued, and most importantly, from hopelessness to hope. Thank you.